Hello again. This is Edie Osborne, CEO of Mentor Plus. I want to thank you for investing your time and energy to learn more about the Mentor Plus Level 5 advisory approach. During this session, we're going to take a closer look at the Level 5 Decision Support Framework, what it is, and why it's so critical to building an advisory practice. But before we do that, I want to first ask you the question that I've asked hundreds of accountants over the years. Are you a trusted business advisor? I've asked this question literally hundreds of times. Nearly every accountant that answered yes, which, by the way, was the majority, when I pressed them for more details about how being a trusted business advisor actually manifests itself in their firm, I usually get sort of a deer in headlights stare in response. As you probably already surmise, most accountants are performing random acts of consulting. This is so different from how they approach tax, audit, and accounting work. Any accountant worth their salt wouldn't think of running a firm without proper systems, workflow, work papers, etc., and yet very few firms actually have a formalized approach for doing consulting work. That's just not good enough anymore. Firms that want to position themselves as trusted business advisors have to take a firm-wide approach that is reflected in both their culture and the services they provide. Advisory services cannot be seen as a niche offering. Advisory work starts with a holistic business acumen mindset that permeates every client interaction. A true trusted advisor appreciates the interconnectedness of every aspect of business performance. They cannot look at the financial performance of the company and not be thinking about all areas of business performance. Here's a crazy idea, or maybe not so crazy. Imagine a future where advisory work is the central focus of the profession and compliance work is just one of its deliverables. Joel Barker, the futurist, has a paradigm-shifting question that should be applied here. His question goes something like this. What seems impossible today, but if it could be done, would fundamentally change what you do? Now I want to take that question and apply it to the profession. And in doing so, I believe the question reads something like this. What seems impossible today, but if it were the case, would fundamentally improve the value proposition between accountants and the clients they serve. I believe the only thing holding the profession back from this future reality is the lack of an industry-wide push for a standard advisory process. In some regions, business owners who are lucky enough to have had a Level 5 advisor have become raving fans, and prospects are actually approaching their accountants asking for Level 5 service. So maybe my future vision is not so crazy. For firms to thrive in the future, they must make the transition from a compliance-focused to reliance-focused relationships. I believe this needs to happen for the accounting profession to continue to hold the title of most trusted business advisor. I'm challenging the profession to step up to the needs of their small business clients before it's too late. I believe there are competitive forces that are changing the landscape of business and thereby the expectations that clients have of their accountant. When it comes to being your client's most trusted business advisor, your biggest competitor is not the accountant down the block, but the management consultants of the world who recognize and are seizing upon the gap between the support that business clients need and what the accounting profession traditionally provides. This infographic does a pretty good job of pointing out where most accountants are spending their time, and that's on the left end of the spectrum, in the compliance area. And yet, when we ask clients what they value, where they want their accountant to be spending time, it's on the right end of the spectrum, on the reliance end. So how do we move from level 1 to 2A to 2B to 3 to 4 to 5 and see our fees go up accordingly? That's what we're going to talk about here in this session, is how the level 5 service continuum is the bridge, is the missing link between moving from a compliance focus to a reliance-based relationship with your clients. The good news is it used to be that a lot of firms weren't even sure that they wanted to add advisory services to their firm service mix. But now it's no longer a question of if, it's a question of how, and how to shortcut that learning curve. You could spend literally tens of thousands, and I know firms that have spent in the hundreds of thousands of dollars developing advisory services for their firm. But you don't have to. You can thank the hundreds of practitioners who've gone before you for helping to prove the Level 5 model. That way you don't have to start from scratch. We can shortcut your learning curve. You get the benefit of all the refinements that have been made along the way. Let's jump in and figure out what these levels are all about. Level 1 answers the question, how have we done? It includes write-up and the preparation and delivery of financial statements, tax returns, and other compliance work. Although most firms see this as their core offerings, these are assumed competencies from the business owner's perspective. There is no question that Level 1 service is the backbone of the profession, yet these services are increasingly becoming a commodity, making it difficult for firms to differentiate themselves on Level 1 services alone. That's why the majority of firms have already migrated to Level 2. Level 2 answers the question, what information is most critical to your business? Level 2 analyzes the financial information and highlights critical ratios. Many firms already supplement financial statements with industry benchmarks as well as definitions and implications of the ratios. We refer to this step as financial and business fluency. It's dangerous to assume clients understand their financials. If you've ever traveled abroad and you didn't speak the language, you know that sometimes things get lost in translation. Being fluent in the language, and in the case of our clients, helping them become financially fluent, is going to make all the difference when it comes time for them to make day-to-day decisions based on what they've seen in their financial information. At a minimum, every accountant in the world should be at Level 2A, not just for their client's sake, but for their own as well. Level 2A is what brings real value to the financial information at Level 1. Level 2A, at the end of the day, is what's going to fortify the value of Level 1 services. However, even though this is a good step in the right direction, this is still only about hindsight. Level 2B is where we go from hindsight to insight. Level 2B asks the question, what if? What if you could reduce your receivable days? What if you wanted to grow at your current pace? How will that impact your cash flow? Essentially, there are 7 key business drivers, and we're able to take those 7 drivers and what if them to help paint the picture for the future that the client wants for themselves. We can also use those 7 drivers to stress test the business, to apply a worst case scenario against all 7 drivers so the client can see for themselves where they really need to focus their energy. Some of those drivers are going to be more critical than others given their circumstances. Mentor Plus has a piece of software we call Scope It. This software provides the ideal vehicle for turning financial concepts into a tangible reality for your clients. If you've ever had a client say, hey, if I made a profit, where's my cash? Then you know that they have a hard time connecting between the concept and reality in their business. This software allows them to sit side by side with you and envision their future and play with all the variables that could impact that future. This is a great precursor to Level 3. When we get to the Level 5 deep dive, you'll be able to see how the software works to support the entire Level 5 framework, but it's most critical at this point right here, Level 2B. By now you might be wondering how other firms are performing against the Level 5 standard. Based on many conversations with leaders and practitioners, in fact I had the chance to speak to a large number of international institute directors, and they all agreed that the majority of the profession, their words, 95% of the profession, is stuck at Level 2A. They don't even know how to get to Level 2B, Level 3, or beyond. So if you're one of those practitioners who's stepping up to the plate to learn how to do this, then you'll have an instant advantage over your competitors. Level 3 is all about the future. It asks the question, where do you want to be in 5 years? Where are you going? The role of the practitioner, you, at this level, is to help your clients articulate their vision, their mission, their long-term goals, and identify areas of company performance that will have a significant impact on the achievement of company goals. If your firm is providing Level 3 service, you already have a significant advantage over most of the other firms. This also makes you a lot more effective at Level 1, When it's time to do tax planning, not knowing what your client's end in mind is really all about can be a real hindrance. So level 3 should be, in my mind, a standard practice for firms to understand what their client's end in mind looks like. And even if the client doesn't have a written down strategic plan, you can still work with them to identify where they want to be so that the information you provide at level 1 and level 2A and 2B is a lot more relevant to the goals they have for themselves. Once we have a picture in mind where the client wants to take their business in the future, that's where we step in at level 4. Level 4 answers the question beyond level 3, from where are we going to now how are we going to get there. Level 4 is about making connections between behaviors and outcomes. It involves drilling down from company-wide goals to those activities that have the greatest impact on the achievement of those goals. This creates line-of-sight ownership and accountability for every employee so they can be a part of company success. Level 4 is where we look at those big picture goals and we chunk it down into what we call key performance indicators. Those KPIs get fed into a business dashboard, and whether it's a very sophisticated dashboard or a very simple dashboard doesn't really matter. That's going to depend on the size and sophistication and needs of the client, but as long as we're helping them identify the most critical factors in their business, they won't be distracted by all the other potential activities that they could be monitoring. The 80-20 rule really applies here. If you think about the Pareto principle, 20% of activities are really the lead dominoes that are impacting 80% of the outcomes. So what we want to do is not measure everything. We don't want to measure so many things that the process one becomes burdensome, and when you measure everything, nothing is important. So the key here at level 4 is to identify those measures that are most critical to the achievement of company goals. Once we've got that in place, then we're ready to move on to level 5. Level 5 answers the question, what are we going to do next? Level 5 is about acting on the information gleaned from level 4 performance measurements. And up to this point, clients have sorted through all the available data housed in their company. They've zeroed in on a handful of measures that are most critical to the achievement of their goals. Now it's time to shift their energy from building a performance measurement system to strategically managing the performance of their company. This diagram gives you a good sense of what's happening at level 5. If we go back to the idea that we want to move from compliance to reliance, and compliance is sort of that left end of the spectrum where we're really focused on the data, what we want to do is move to the right side, and to do that we have to take that data and transform it. We put it through a process, and that process looks like this. Those people performing those activities have the potential to spin off a lot of data. Some of that data is housed in the general ledger. A lot more of that data is housed in non-financial software applications, such as their CRM system or an ERP or a time and billing system or a project management software, point of sale systems, estimating systems. There are so many potential software programs that you will be interfacing with in order to get both the financial and non-financial data organized in a way that we can strategically manage the business more effectively. So one of the tools that I'll talk about and give away actually when I do the level 5 deep dive is something called an inventory of information systems, where we actually show you how to go through and identify, both from a quality and quantity standpoint, the usability of the data for a business dashboard. Once we've got that information organized, then we're going to analyze it, because most companies are data rich and information poor, and it's in the slicing and dicing of data, the data mining, the analysis of data, that we get the real insights that are going to help us make better decisions going forward. As I mentioned before, we have Scope It software, which you'll see in the level 5 deep dive. But if you have software where you're doing analytics on your clients' numbers, both their financial and their non-financial, then you're good to go. You're already, ready to apply that skill set that you have toward the level 5 framework. Once we've analyzed the numbers, then management is in a position to make strategically managed decisions. Instead of random acts of management, you get a lot more cohesive management approach across all of leadership in the company, and When we close the loop, and here's where that red arrow at the bottom of the screen here, this arrow right here becomes really important. When we take the information and we feed it back to employees, give them line of sight feedback about how they're performing in their work element, that raises the strategic intelligence of not just that employee, but everyone in the organization, and you see a much higher level of participatory management, self-management, where employees are empowered to look at what they're doing, not just within the context of am I doing things right, but am I doing the right things? And so this continuous loop provides for what the Japanese would call kaizen, what some companies call sustainability. We call it continuous improvement. But at the end of the day, that's what the level 5 framework is going to help us achieve, is this continuous improvement cycle. And the beauty of doing the level 5 framework is we are going to be perpetually revisiting levels 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 again and again and again, because as the client's needs change, as their industry changes, as the economy shifts, obviously their priorities are going to shift accordingly. And so we don't just come up with a set of measures that are static and we walk away. This is a very dynamic process and becomes an annuity. A wonderful revenue stream and a non-seasonal revenue stream for accounting firms that are able to raise the bar to reach the level 5 standard. So let's put a bow on this segment. The takeaways from this session is that frameworks are key. You wouldn't try and do a tax return or an audit or prepare financial statements without having some kind of work process, a flow that you follow, a step-by-step protocol that everybody understands and adheres to. And yet, when it comes to doing advisory work, we have this random acts of consulting that is getting in the way of a lot of things. First of all, it gets in the way of leveraging that activity across the firm. And when you have one or two partners that are doing advisory work, we usually consider them sort of advisory savants. They have a natural gift and a talent, but they don't have a gift for putting a system and a process together. And so the rest of the firm is often left sort of with a big question mark over their head as to how do we do advisory work? We don't look or act or seem that we have the same skill set as Bill or Joe or Sue. And I want to demystify advisory work. Yes, there are some great savants out there and they're wonderful to have on your team, but more to the point, every single practitioner in the profession should be able to understand level 5, what it means, and in some way, shape, or form plug into that framework, whether they're working in the back office, putting the numbers into software and doing the analysis, and then maybe coaching a partner before they go out to a meeting, or maybe they're the person who has great facilitation skills and they can be involved in your planning. It might be that they're really good at detail, and so they would be the ones that you would want to have help you facilitate the development of measures and creating systems of accountability. Bottom line is there's a place for every single employee in your firm to be doing part of the level 5 process. Maybe not all of it, but at a minimum it should be such a core value to the firm that everybody understands what level 5 is about, what it entails, and can identify opportunities to introduce clients to the level 5 framework. When I get into the deep dive, which by the way is free, if I haven't said that before, that will be free. It's not the next video I have for you, but the one after that. I'll be talking about a firm and many firms that have actually taken the level 5 approach, some of their best practices, and what they're doing to engage every employee in their firm in the level 5 mindset. So frameworks are key. Value proposition becomes a lot clearer when we do a good job of quantifying where the client's performance is at today. We help them identify strategies for improvement. We put measures against those strategies, and lo and behold, when things improve, we can quantify the impact that we've made on that business. It's a repeatable, proven process. It's scalable. And again, I'll talk about more of this detail when we get to the level 5 deep dive. And it can be leveraged across the firm. So My goal, my vision for sharing all of this information, which others have paid to see and gain access to, by the way, my goal in giving it away is the more practitioners that get the level 5 mindset, the better off the profession's going to be. And if you really care about your small business clients, which I know you do, they will be better off for it. Imagine a business that operates at level 1 information. That business is not nearly as well run as a business that operates at level 5. So the long-term impact of turning, sort of random acts of business management into level 5 strategic management is really a huge boost to the small business community. We can raise their level of business acumen by teaching them about level 5 and why it's important for everyone in their company to be engaged in managing their own behavior, and they can only do that if they're getting feedback about that behavior. So, I hope this was helpful. I look forward to speaking with you when we get to the next segment, which is on the 10 core principles that are associated with being a true trusted business advisor. And then beyond that, you'll be invited to opt in for the level 5 deep dive. And I hope you're putting your comments and ideas and suggestions in the video areas associated with this video that I've shared with you. And I'll see you on the other side.